Not everyone around you will be happy about your happiness. You might share that you're expecting a child or that you got promoted, hoping for a sincere smile, words of support, maybe even a hug. But instead, you get a forced smile and a wow. That's a big responsibility, huh? Followed by an uncomfortable silence. No words of encouragement, no sparkle in their eyes, just a cold remark that deflates your excitement. You might try to ignore it, but something about it doesn't feel right. Small moments like this say more than they seem to. And if you don't recognize the signs, you could spend years next to someone who, deep down, is rooting against you. Sometimes, the person who belittles you isn't a stranger or someone openly hostile. On the contrary, it's someone close, someone who smiles, pretends to support you, but secretly wants to see you stumble. A longtime friend, a relative, someone you share important moments with. The problem is that this resentment is rarely direct. It hides between the lines, in small gestures, in subtle comments that make you wonder if you're overreacting. Carl Jung used to say that we all carry a shadow, the hidden part of our personality, full of repressed desires, unacknowledged envy, and disguised frustrations. When someone feels anger, jealousy, or contempt but can't consciously deal with these emotions, that energy doesn't just disappear. It seeps into everyday life in subtle ways. If you've ever felt that certain people around you don't celebrate your victories, that your achievements are met with silence or indifference, it might not just be your imagination. These are signs that someone around you is not truly on your side. The danger of ignoring these signals is that, little by little, they eat away at your confidence, make you doubt yourself, and, without realizing it, trap you in relationships that drain your energy. But what are these signs? You're enthusiastically telling a story, sharing something that made you happy. In the middle of the conversation, a friend throws in a comment. "Wow, that's amazing." For you, the tone is slightly mocking, a smirk appears, and everyone around laughs. You feel the twinge of discomfort, but brush it off. Minutes later, the same person makes another joke. "Oh, look at that. Now you're an expert in this too." More laughter. And then, as if realizing they went too far, they add, "Just kidding, don't take it seriously." This kind of irony isn't just a harmless joke. It carries subtle disdain, venom disguised as humor. Constant sarcasm can be a socially acceptable way to express resentment without direct confrontation. And the most dangerous part, the doubt it plants. Was it just a joke? Am I overreacting? And this pattern repeats. Small comments here and there start chipping away at your confidence, making you question yourself without even realizing it. Jung would explain this as a projection of the shadow. The parts of oneself that a person refuses to accept and instead projects onto others. When someone feels envious or inferior but doesn't want to admit it, they might try to diminish those around them. And they do it in a way that makes it hard for the target to fight back because, after all, it was just a joke. This mechanism allows the aggressor to hide their intentions even from themselves. If someone close to you frequently uses sarcasm to downplay your achievements, pay attention. If, when you stand up for yourself, they twist the situation and make you feel guilty for not knowing how to take a joke, something deeper is at play. Disguised contempt through irony isn't just an insignificant detail, it's a clear sign of hidden resentment behind the laughter. Not all hostility is expressed through harsh words or direct confrontations. It also manifests in other ways, through small mistakes, convenient forgetfulness, or advice that seems helpful, but actually leads you in the wrong direction. People who secretly harbor resentment against you will rarely expose it openly. Instead, they create subtle obstacles in your path, always with a ready excuse to escape suspicion. You might notice this when someone who should be on your side constantly lets you down. Maybe they promise to help with something important, and at the last minute, they forget or make a mistake that complicates your life. It could be a friend who always has an excuse for not keeping their promises, or a relative who gives you advice that ends up holding you back rather than pushing you forward. From Jung's perspective, this behavior often stems from an internal conflict. The person feels both admiration and resentment at the same time. They want to stay close to you but can't stand to see you grow or succeed. Since they can't express this directly without seeming envious or petty, they find indirect ways to sabotage your progress. The danger of this type of sabotage is that it can go unnoticed for a long time. You might end up doubting yourself, thinking it was just bad luck or coincidence. But when these accidents become a pattern, it's time to pay attention. Someone who genuinely wants the best for you doesn't repeatedly hold you back under the guise of distraction or carelessness. Some people close to you feel challenged by your growth, but would never admit it. Instead of expressing their competitiveness directly, they turn every conversation into a contest. Your success isn't celebrated, it's overshadowed. Your achievement isn't acknowledged, but minimized or outdone by something they've done. You say, "Man, I finally got a raise at work." And the response comes instantly, "Oh, cool. But that was expected, right? By the way, last week I got an offer from a huge company paying almost double, but I'm not sure if it's worth it." Or you mention, "I started going to the gym, trying to build a routine," and they reply, "That's great. Me too, but I've been training 6 times a week with a personal trainer and already lost 5 kilos. Everything turns into a competition. The conversation is never about you. It's about how this person always has something bigger, better, more impressive. Jung would describe this as the repressed part of the psyche that refuses to deal with feelings of inferiority. When someone sees another person growing and feels like they're being left behind, they might react unconsciously, trying to prove their own worth. Silent competition stems from the fear of becoming irrelevant, from the difficulty of accepting that someone else's success doesn't diminish their own. If every conversation with someone close to you feels like a contest, if your victories are never met with genuine enthusiasm, you're facing a hidden rivalry. Healthy relationships allow both people to shine without the constant need to compare who is ahead. Not every show of support is genuine. Some people maintain the appearance of friendship or closeness, but in reality, they're never truly by your side. They say they're rooting for you, but when you really need them, they vanish. Their presence is merely symbolic. They're there to maintain an image, not to offer real support. This type of behavior reveals itself in small actions. When you share an achievement, the reaction is lukewarm, without enthusiasm. When you go through a tough time, the promised help never materializes. And if one day you question their absence, they quickly come up with convincing excuses, avoiding any confrontation. This distance is a defense mechanism of the psyche against repressed feelings. People who feel threatened by your growth or uncomfortable with your presence may force themselves to show superficial support to maintain the illusion of closeness, while internally battling their own resentment. This prevents them from genuinely celebrating your victories or being there for you in difficult moments. Over time, this pattern can become emotionally exhausting. The feeling of relying on someone who is never truly there creates frustration and loneliness. True friendship and genuine support are not just words. They are actions that manifest when you need them the most. Not all advice comes from a place of love. What seems like concern is actually a form of control. People who want to keep you under their influence won't say, "Do what I want," but rather, "I'm just trying to help you." However, their help never strengthens your confidence. On the contrary, it makes you feel incapable without their opinion. You mention that you're thinking about changing jobs, and this person sighs. "Are you sure that's a good idea? You're so lucky where you are. What if it doesn't work out? I just don't want to see you suffer." Or you say you want to try something new, and they immediately point out all the difficulties. "That's really risky, huh? I don't think you have the right profile for that." At first, it seems like they truly care about your well-being, but over time, you realize that their opinions always create doubt, never encouragement. Jung describes this as an unconscious power game. People who feel the need to control others often project their own fears and insecurities, disguised as good intentions. They don't do it out of deliberate malice, but on a deeper level, they need you to remain dependent on them to feel relevant. The fear of losing that position leads them to sabotage your independence without even realizing it. If every time you share a plan, you receive more doubts than support, pay attention. True care strengthens, it doesn't weaken. Concern should encourage reflection, not create fear or paralysis. Not all resentment is shown to your face. Some people who act friendly when they're with you become entirely different when you're not around. They don't confront you directly, but express their dissatisfaction through comments behind your back, spreading criticism and distorting how others see you. You start noticing that people around you are acting differently. Someone who used to be warm now seems distant. Another begins treating you with subtle disdain for no apparent reason. Little by little, you discover that the person you trusted has been making remarks about you. "Oh, they're great, but kind of arrogant lately, don't you think?" Or, "She's talented, but I don't know. Something about her feels fake." Always with a tone of fake concern, always planting seeds of doubt about who you really are. When someone can't admit their own discomfort, envy, or frustration, they project it onto others, often through gossip. Instead of dealing with their emotions, they spread narratives that sabotage your social image. What they say about you reveals more about them than it does about reality. If you notice people treating you differently without a clear reason, it could be a sign that someone is shaping their perception of you. Healthy relationships are built on dialogue and transparency, not insinuations and manipulation. Not everyone around you will celebrate your victories. Some, no matter how close they are, simply can't feel happiness for someone else's success. Resentment is silent but noticeable. The tone of voice changes, the eyes lose their warmth. The conversation quickly shifts to another topic. You excitedly share, "I finally closed that contract with the company I wanted." And instead of an enthusiastic reaction, you get a dry, "Oh, that's good." The person forces a smile and immediately changes the subject. Or when you announce that you've reached a major goal, the only response is a brief "nice," followed by an awkward silence. If it were anyone else, you might have received a hug or words of encouragement. But from this person, all you get is disinterest disguised as neutrality. Jung explains this as an internal conflict between admiration and repressed envy. Someone who wishes they were where you are but can't admit it reacts defensively. Since expressing their discomfort openly would be socially unacceptable, they resort to feigned indifference. Deep down, they're not just upset about your success, they're struggling with their own sense of stagnation. If you notice that certain friends or family members seem uncomfortable or distant every time you achieve something important, don't ignore it. How they react to your growth says a lot about the nature of your relationship. True joy doesn't need to be forced. If it doesn't appear naturally, maybe it was never there at all. Not all contempt is verbalized. The body speaks before the mouth does. Small gestures, shifts in posture, facial expressions that last only fractions of a second. All of these reveal emotions that someone tries to hide. Even when words are kind, body language can tell a completely different story. You walk into a room and greet a friend. He responds with a smile, but something feels off. The smile is brief, forced, and his eyes don't match the expression. During the conversation, he avoids eye contact, keeps his arms crossed, and leans slightly backward as if creating distance. You share good news and notice a subtle detail. While pretending to listen, he presses his lips together or quickly looks away. When he speaks, his tone is flat, lacking real enthusiasm. The body doesn't lie, it reflects what the mind tries to conceal. If someone close to you consistently shows subtle signs of discomfort in your presence, even while pretending to be friendly, it's worth paying attention. Small gestures are clues to repressed emotions. True affection doesn't need to be forced, and indifference never stays hidden for long. Human relationships are complex, and not all resentment is obvious. Often, hostility hides behind jokes, excuses, awkward silences, or discreet gestures. When someone secretly harbors negative feelings toward you, these signs emerge in indirect ways, through disguised sarcasm, accidental sabotage, silent competition, or the absence of genuine support. Envy, insecurity, and resentment are emotions that few people consciously admit to feeling. Instead of confronting them, they project these feelings onto others, sabotaging, minimizing, or distorting their relationships. The most dangerous thing about ignoring these signs is that, over time, they can erode your self-esteem and confidence. Being around someone who secretly wants to see you fail will make you doubt your own perceptions. It will lead you to question yourself, feel guilty for things you didn't do, or even settle into relationships that ultimately harm you. It's important to understand that not everyone will root for you, and that's okay. Some relationships need adjustment. Others should simply be left behind. What matters is remembering that you don't need validation from those who, deep down, don't wish you well. Choosing who surrounds you also means choosing the energy you allow into your life. If you enjoyed this content and want to explore more about life's deeper questions, subscribe to the channel and share this video with others who are also among the awakened.